Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol. Now recently Jaguar announced that from 2025 they will cease production of all petrol and diesel vehicles and only make electric cars. Now behind me is the new 2021 Jaguar I-Pace, the only electric car they currently make. It best be good. Now this is actually the second time I've had an I-Pace on the channel. I drove one a couple of years ago, not long after they launched, and it impressed me a great deal. I don't think it's a massive secret that I've got a bit of a soft spot for the I-Pace. For me, I think it's one of the best looking cars that Jaguar make. And it's certainly right up there in terms of one of the best looking EVs that you can buy. And I know looks are very subjective, but this ticks a lot of boxes for me. I think the front of the car is so sleek. I've always liked the headlamp design. And interestingly, if you look at the new F-Type, I think a lot of I-Pace has gone into F-Type. But I've always loved the way that the air is sculpted at the front. You've got this intake here that comes through and then out here to, if you like, airflow management around the front of the car to help reduce its drag coefficient and so on. Now this is the new demonstrator for my good friends at Harwoods Jaguar Chichester, and they emailed me a couple of weeks ago and said, look Ped, we've got the new I-Pace in, we think you'll like it. It's got some really interesting updates, especially to do with the sat-nav and MMI, which I'll get onto very shortly. But look at it from a spec point of view. This dark blue colour with the black wheels just looks beautiful. The interior is very light and very airy. Not so sure how much I could live with those white seats, but they do look really nice. And then you walk down the side of the car and it's just got lovely lines. And I get to the back of the car. The back's lovely. So where do I start with the back? Well, I'm going to start where the air would, and that's through this kind of roof spoiler here. Sets the top of the car off beautifully. Privacy glass, I'm always a big fan of privacy glass. But the back of the car, the way this car's been spec'd with the slight tint in the rear lights, the blacked out badge work, I love the diffuser section there. It just looks brilliant from the back for me. Really, really like it a great deal. And then in terms of boot space, do you know what? It's not too bad. Obviously, I've got the obligatory charge cable just lying there, but there is some underfloor storage. Not a great deal. I'd put the charge cable in there if this were my car, obviously. But it's plenty big enough, especially for a couple of dogs. It's quite tempting as a proposition, this car, I have to say. So yeah, you would think that with that sloping roofline, the boot space might be compromised a little bit, but it's not. What's it like in the back? Rear passenger. Love those handles. Not bad. I've got a fair amount of leg room. As I always say in these videos, that seat is set for me as a driver. I have long legs and I've got a reasonable amount of leg room. I don't know how I would classify this car, whether it's a kind of compact SUV size. It's not quite like that, but it is very nice in here. Now this car has been spec'd with this full glass roof, which just gives so much light in here, but it also gives a little bit extra headroom. And I've got plenty of headroom. I've got some little lighting controls up here. There is a rear parcel shelf there for the rear. I don't think you'll get much on there. And you've got heated seats in the back of this particular HSE trim spec. I've got a couple of charge ports and a 12-volt socket. It's nice. Guessing this is some nice little... yeah, I could quite easily sit in here for a long journey. It's really nice. But let's have a sit where the action happens, at the front. Oh no! Bad news! Child locks! Bum! Finally managed to get myself out the back of the car. Note to self, check that the child locks aren't on next time, Ped. But anyway, welcome to the interior of the new 2021 Jaguar I-Pace. Let me just fire the car up to show you the displays. First things first, I'm a big fan of the way this car is laid out on the inside. The choice of materials is excellent. This is the HSE spec, so it's their highest level of spec, and you can tell it's a premium product in here. But there are things that have been done in this car that I just really like, that are just a bit different from other cars that I've driven. For example, you've got this big wide screen here with all of your different sat-nav audio and other vehicle controls. I love the fact it's got a white backlight, and the font choice and just the layout's really nice. It's really very easy to use. There's a lot of touchscreen in here, but then most EVs have that. And there's lots of information that you can delve into in this car. You could spend a lot of time just playing with all the different controls. A couple of things I do like: there's an eco data screen, so this car will help you try and improve your driving style. And what's really nice is the range prediction will change dependent upon the things that you're using in the car. So for example, this car's got heated steering wheel or heated seats. You put those on, it's going to hamper the range slightly, and that will be reflected on here. It even gives you eco tips on how to drive better, and you can look at the history of how you're doing. So I think there's a worry sometimes with EVs that people, you buy one and you just suddenly become obsessed with driving economically and trying to eke out as much range as possible, and maybe that's the case, but this car will certainly help you do that. In terms of the actual charging, if we just have a look at that, the maximum range of this car on a full charge is about 220 miles. And now clearly that will depend on a few things: driving style, temperature, the things that you're using in the car. And for me, that's close, but not quite close enough. I really need this car to be having maybe 50 to 75 miles more than that for it to be a proposition that we would buy. Now, this video is not going to be about charging infrastructure and so on, but the vast majority of owners are going to charge at home, wake up in the morning, full battery charge, do their daily commute, their daily drive, come back home, plug it in again, and never ever visit public charging infrastructure. And for most of our journeys, that would be the case. However, we have a house in Cornwall, and we'd like to drive down there. It's about 230 miles, and I would like to be able to do that without having to stop. And therefore, this car can't quite do that, which is very frustrating, because as an electric vehicle, when we get out on the road, it ticks many of my boxes. And I'm going to say something that will definitely get the comments section going. As a non-Tesla EV, this is number one on my shopping list. The big challenge with any non-Tesla EV is you are at the mercy of a public charging infrastructure in the UK that currently, from my perspective, is not up to the job. I know things are improving, and I know they're bound to improve over the coming years, but at the moment it's just not good enough. Now, you can also do some things to extend range, like preconditioning the battery while the car's still plugged in, especially in cold weather. So there are some really nice screens on here for us to see. Now, at the moment, I'm running, I think it said there, 44% of battery, and I've got a predicted range now of 96 miles. I have actually done about 100 or so miles in the car this morning. I drove to the New Forest and back to do something off camera. The other thing about this car, the sat-nav has some really nice features that enable you to search for the nearest charge station, but it really nicely, it doesn't just say where it is, but it tells you what speed of charger it is. And there's also a link there where you can look for food stops and those types of things. So the integration of the charge network to the sat-nav seems to be much better in this new updated Jaguar I-Pace than in some of the other manufacturers' EVs I've had recently. This secondary touchscreen here is all to do with your climate controls. Your gear selector is just 4 buttons down here: drive, neutral, reverse and park. And then you've got a range of buttons here to do with the different drive modes, but we need to look at those when we get out and about driving. But all in all, a really nice premium place to be. It's a super interior. This panoramic glass roof is a must for me. It just makes the car feel so airy, but it has a fairly heavy tint on it as well, so you're not going to get too hot if you live in a sunny climate. It's lovely in here. Now, I have, as I've said already, been driving this quite a bit, so there's plenty to talk about once we get out on the road. So let's get some cameras set up and go for a drive. Simple place to start this road test part of the review. It's a lovely car to drive, this. the seating position and just general driving controls layout is absolutely first class. I love the steering wheel, it's got a nice feel to it. It's very Jaguar in here, but it's Jaguar elevated to a kind of more modern feel with all of these lovely instruments and touchscreen displays. The performance of the car is nippy and quick, and all the instant torque and all the things you would expect from any EV really. And it impresses very quickly when you get behind the wheel. As I've mentioned already, I think the thing that lets the car down is range, but that's only because of a very specific requirement I have. For many people that probably wouldn't be a massive problem, but if you want to do a longer journey, then I still think EVs need to be looking at the 300 miles and above range. And actually, if I look in the comments of many of my videos, people really want 400 plus miles. Oh, hello, what's that? Nice Maserati. And I just don't think that I can see that coming anytime soon unless there's a massive increase in battery technology. I think the kind of weight, efficiency, performance thing is that 350 miles top end. And really at the moment it's only really Tesla that are hitting that mark. A lot of the other traditional car manufacturers are struggling to get anywhere near them. And I think if this car would do 300 miles, man alive, Jaguar would sell a lot of them. But I just want to address this this aim or change of direction for Jaguar that they announced very recently. And that is from 2025 they're only going to do electric cars. And I honestly think that's a massive, massive challenge for them as a company, because the I-Pace at the moment is the only full EV they have. What happens to XE, XJ, F-Type, F-Pace, E-Pace? What happens to all of those? And I'm sure they've got plans that we haven't yet seen, but this as a base model, as a kind of as a place to move on from, going down that full EV route is a very, very good place to start. I honestly think it's one of the best EVs that you can buy. And if we just put to one side charging infrastructure and Tesla as an ownership experience, they have the charging infrastructure utterly nailed, and that is why as a potential EV buyer, Model Y for me is such an interesting proposition. It has the range, 300 miles or so, and it has the infrastructure, and that's why this car for me would be a challenge. However, I sit in this car, and I'm going to upset the Teslarati here, but this is on another level to any Tesla I've ever sat in. The build quality, the feel of quality in here is just a completely different ball game. And I think when you buy a Tesla, you almost appreciate or if you like understand that the quality of the car might not be as good as you would like, but the quality of the overall living with experience is far, far better. And that's a shame, because I really want to buy one of these I-Paces. I really, really like it. Now, I've already mentioned earlier today, I did about 100 kind of dual carriageway miles in this car, and it is super impressive. You just stick on the adaptive cruise control and it munches the miles. It's very smooth, very quiet. It's a really relaxing place to be. And I get that vibe in most electric cars, to be honest. Once they cruise on the motorway, they're lovely mile munchers. Until you have to charge them up, of course. But I think this car has something else that I need to tap into. So I'm going to basically go down into this Drive Select program, and I'm going to go into dynamic mode. And that should give me a bit more throttle response and a little bit more zip. I have a feeling it's going to be quite a lot of zip. Four-wheel drive platform, plenty of go, instant torque. Oh yes, this is why I love electric cars, because the pull you get out of the corners is fantastic. This car has quite a nice poise and a nice balance. I guess aided by its weight, although much of that weight is quite low down, so the centre of gravity is quite low. And when you get the opportunity to give your favourite B-road a bit of a blast in this car, it's going to put a big smile on your face. I often bring cars down this little stretch of road because it's a lovely test of different types of corners, sharper, tighter, slow speed ones, some more open flowing corners. The road surface isn't great, which is always a good test of a car's stability, and the view's pretty good as well. Turn-in's quite nice. The noise it's making, well, it doesn't have an augmented noise like some cars nowadays, although it does make a mild noise when it's reversing, I guess just to let passers-by know that there's an electric car backing up. But it's got poke. It really has. It doesn't have the drama and engagement of a internal combustion engine, obviously, but you get that instant torque, you get that powerful engine, that four-wheel drive. Oh, Hero, come on, son, get up that hill. But it would be rude of me not to try and take it up the Petrol hill climb, although for regular viewers to the channel, you will notice something, because this week this road has actually been closed because they've been doing some forestry. They've been removing all of the ash trees that have had ash dieback, and it looks like a moonscape now. It's totally changed the Petrol hill climb. Look, it's so open now, but it's got there's loads of mud on the road, so I'm going to be a little bit careful and stuff. But look, it's totally changed my favourite hill. It's all open now, you can see everything. But yeah, this car on a bit of B road, when you want to have a bit of a blast and a bit of a zip, it's really, really impressive. So what are my final thoughts and final impressions on the Jaguar I-Pace? Well, I knew I'd like it because I liked it the first time I drove it. For me, it's a very, very good package. We haven't talked money yet, by the way. I think the car I'm sat in's in the kind of 65 to 68,000 quid mark, something along that range. So they're not cheap cars by any means, but they're certainly a lot cheaper than some of the EVs I've driven recently. The equipment level in this HSE spec is very, very high. It's a beautiful place to sit, wonderful selection of materials. I think the interior looks fantastic. I love this kind of floating console here, and there's a wireless charge mat behind. So the cockpit layout, the ergonomics, the design on the inside, the aesthetics on the outside, everything ticks my box. The frustration for me is the range just isn't quite there for me, and I know plenty of people it will be enough. A couple of 100 miles is enough for almost every journey profile. But if you've got somewhere that you need to go, for me it's 230 miles, and I want to go there without having to stop at a charge point, and that's more to do with Mrs. Petrolped's lack of patience than mine. If it wasn't for that, if this car did 300 miles, I'd buy one tomorrow. For me, this is the best non-Tesla EV that you can buy, and that's not to do with the Tesla car, it's to do with our overall ownership experience. So I think for Jaguar going long-term, going down the pure EV route from 2025, there is promise, because the EV that they have is a really, really good one. However, the things that they need to sort out, they need to get more range. Now that's either by, this has got a big battery pack in it anyway, so it's got to be to do with efficiency. And then they need to think about how they're going to translate their EV drivetrain into their existing lineup of cars. What are they going to do with F-Type? What are they going to do with XE and XJ and XF? Are they going to replace them with something else? All of these things we'll find out, I guess. But it's a bold move, and I know it's what all the manufacturers are going to have to do from 2030 onwards. In the UK, they've banned anything other than EVs and hybrids from 2030. And in a way, I understand that, and it's exciting times. In a way, I also find it incredibly sad that Jaguar won't be making the F-Type anymore. I mean, come on, seriously? Or certainly not an F-Type with a V8 engine in it anyway. But if it's going to be like this little I-Pace, then that's good. It's a good car. Really good car. Now all we need to do is get the government to sort out the charging infrastructure. And let's not even go to the point of how much it costs to charge in public. maybe I need to do a separate video on that. Because at the moment it's pretty expensive, but at the moment the government are getting lots of fuel duty from petrol and diesel sales. So when everybody starts to use electric, where's that extra taxation going to come from? Hold on a minute, let me think. Oh yeah, electricity. So there'll be a higher tax put on electric, so it'll be even more expensive to charge. So either way, going forward, motoring in this country is going to cost us more. But as far as the I-Pace is concerned, it's a massive tick in the box for me. I love it. Anyway, massive thank you to Dan and all the team at Harwoods Jaguar Chichester. It's great when I get someone proactively reach out to me and offer me a car, and it's been a real pleasure driving this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what you guys think of the new I-Pace. But if you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome if you haven't done so already.